What's up, everybody? What's going on? We are here for the WROK Juneteenth podcast. I'm so excited. I've got some amazing guests, two amazing guests today. I'm just going to go ahead and pipe them in. I've got LaKeesha Morrison. Hey, LaKeesha. Hey, say hi, everybody.
Hello, hello.
All right. And of course, we got Ian Sherman. What's going on? Yes.
That's a lot of my face right there. How you doing, guys? Welcome.
We had to back it up a little bit, Ian.
Yeah.
But you know, he said, whoa.
Wouldn't be a Detroit barbecue without backing it up a little bit.
Exactly. But I'm so excited to have the both of you here. Let's dig right into it. Both of you, we're talking about Juneteenth, first of all, for all of you who are chiming in, whether you're listening or watching. We're going to talk about what is Juneteenth, but real quickly, there's a story. How did you two meet?
I can go first, Ian.
By all
Ian
means, ladies first.
Alrighty. Ian and I met at LaKeesha High School, which formerly known as Kimball High School. We clicked right away, being in LaKeesha, predominantly white. You know, a lot of us children of color kind of stuck together. So me and Ian became friends very quickly.
Okay.
So,
I could dig
real recognizes real. That's how that was.
yes.
You heard that.
Let's be serious. We were all the ones who got down dancing at those parties back in the day. So
This
we
is
all
true.
knew each other. We said there was rhythm in the room. So we said, okay, that's why I rock with. That's
Yes.
exactly why I
This
rock
is
with.
very
It's
true.
great.
Right.
Yeah.
So, y'all, that's why we got LaKeesha and Ian on the show. They're from WROK. Hey, they can't even say they're from somewhere else. But I know, Ian, you are in New York City. You are doing the doggone thing. You have your own podcast that you have, and you're in the music scene. You're a little bit of project management, a little bit. Hey, a jack of all trades, the master of everywhere.
They say master of none, but let me tell you, I'm
master of a lot.
Yeah, it really is the truth. Yeah.
Yes.
Entertainment brought me out to New York, but Detroit is home base. I try to get back to Detroit at least, keep it in my diet once a year for summers, because summer in Detroit that's food for my soul.
Exactly.
And I'm happy to say that I got my son to go out there. So he correlates Detroit with being a lot of fun for him. So we're passing that down the line. So we're just doing exactly what we need to do.
All right. That sounds good. LaKeesha Morrison, proud WROK native and a direct descendant of one of the city's first freedom-seeking and pioneering Black families. Let me get that right, okay?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. So,
not too long ago in 2020, my father and I actually sat down and did a taping for WROK. And this is maybe about 3 months before his passing. So thank God I still have that video of us sitting down talking about our heritage in WROK. So when I walk in here, I have all kinds of emotions, but all good ones, because I get to tell my story. I get to tell my family story about how, in 1860, when the time was scary for all Black Americans, trying to seek freedom and trying to, build a family and ownership. So with my family being one of the first Black pioneering family to own land and heritage and, represent everything that every Black family wants right now, they started that, centuries ago for us. And I couldn't be more prouder than the blood that is running through my soul. So, yeah.
Finger snapping.
Yeah.
Finger snapping. All right. Let's dig right into it, y'all. Juneteenth. Okay, what is Juneteenth? We know it marks the day when the last enslaved people in the U.S. learned that they were free, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, okay, why do you think there was a delay? You know what I mean? And what is your take on Juneteenth? What is Juneteenth, y'all? Let's put that out there in the middle there.
Ian,
You want to take it, or you want me to jump in?
jump right on in, and I'll follow you.
It's okay. What? And thank you. What's really interesting about Juneteenth, and I learned about it as Jubilee Day, and that's from when I found out about this before it was a national holiday in 2007, 2008 ish, when I went to a barbecue, and I was like, what is all the, the theme that's here for Jubilee Day? I go, tell me more about it. There was, red velvet cake, there was barbecue, there was like hibiscus tea. And I come to find out that that's actually like a West African cultural thing about the color red that's tied to it. And
Okay.
I was blown away by learning about Jubilee Day, and then coming to find out that was tied to, as we know, Juneteenth and everything else. But the biggest thing that got me was that this all went down in Texas. So after the Civil War, after the, like you said,
Yep.
the Emancipation, leading into the 13th Amendment, all this stuff that all went down, it made me think about it. Like, they really did a chokehold on education. So, and it was illegal to read for slaves. So when you're looking at that being the case, you only can wonder why when the documents were coming out and people were being told that they were free, a lot of them couldn't read it.
Right.
And when you think about the slave master, he wasn't going to be like, let me go ahead and read this out to you and let you know that you're good, you're all set, like you can go wherever you want to go.
Right.
And a lot of people talk about it that they wanted to get one last harvest in, and it really took the army coming down there and telling people, you are free. What are you doing right now? And then having words, of course, with the property owners and masters who clearly had to have, their comeuppance. So
Right.
it's quite
Right. That's
interesting
good.
to think about when you really talk about education. And that's why I've been a huge advocate for education, because it's so easy to keep us dumb. And that's where a lot of these conversations of stay woke, because this is where the roots of it are, is that element of
Right.
educate yourself, because you can't trust the system to do it for you, because they'll leave you still picking cotton.
Wow.
Keisha?
Drop the mic.
Yeah,
on that.
and to
Thank you.
piggyback off of what Ian said, I mean, lucky for you, you learned in 2026-7. I didn't learn until I was well into my late 20s what Juneteenth was. And even then, it was like, how come I did not know this? How come I was not educated, elementary all the way through high school? It was always history. We're going to learn about history. It's always depicting, slaves and, showing these very scary pictures in class. And I remember always going to class being embarrassed, but I didn't have to be if I was told the contributions of what Black people had did for America, instead of showing that like these are animals and they should be treated like animals. And unfortunately, like these were the things that I just never knew until I was late in my 20s. And embarrassing enough, it's like, I should have learned these things. And I'm glad that now I'm educated, and I'm educated by my peers and the people of my age. And, a lot of them said that they didn't learn about Juneteenth until they went to college and went to African American studies.
Right.
And, unfortunately, we didn't have those things in high school. And I really wish I did, but now I'm at an age where I'm raising children, and it is my job now to educate and to advocate for my Black community and my peers, the people of color.
Well, if you just joined us, we are talking to LaKeesha Morrison and Ian Sherman, both from residents. Well, they're from Royal Oak. Keisha's still a resident, and Ian is, he comes back and forth. But here's the thing. They were born and bred here. You know what I mean? In Royal Oak. And, I want to pivot a little bit, you two, and talk about the 13th and 14th Amendment. All right? Now, Ian, thank you. We talked offline. You gave me some great stats. Let's start in 2024. The United States holds the highest incarceration. I don't even like the word, so that's why I can't say it.
That's right.
Incarceration rate in the world. Okay, nearly 1.9 million individuals are incarcerated. All right, let's throw that out there. Okay, estimated 664 per 100,000 people. All right, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it. An even more conservative 2022 estimate of 541 per 100,000 places in the U.S., fifth globally. You don't have to be a mathematician to know those numbers are messed up, right?
Yeah.
And so with that, when we connect Juneteenth with the 13th and the 14th Amendment, you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
What do they say about freedom in America, right? How have we truly lived up to that promise? You know what I'm saying? For real. I don't know who wants to chime in on that one. You know what I mean?
There's a part, well, there's something, if you can read what that first line is of the 13th Amendment, because this is something that's always bothered me about the 13th Amendment. And I don't have the quote direct. I don't know if you guys have it in front of you. but it talks about, no one will be enslaved and no one will be in indentured servitude except. And that except piece right there is doing a lot of lifting in the conversation. Because when you correlate that with the incarceration, and you're right, it does leave a bad taste in all of our mouths. When you look at that, and then you look at who's being incarcerated at a higher rate, you realize that it's almost like slavery has limped on through the ages. And there's a part there where you talk about, excuse me, police, their humble beginnings. That was slave catchers.
Right.
And then you look at this modern day lynching that kind of takes place and unfolds in our society.
Yeah.
And then you look at how all these movements that are kind of really popping up, and the part where the people are really trying to uprise and say, like, there is something wrong with the system when this is considered status quo. And
Right.
that's the part where we're just trying to have the conversation. And I always thought about it, and there was a comedian who talked about it where, they mentioned Black Lives Matter when that was becoming a thing. And it said, we're just talking about matters, not more than, not greater than, just matters. And it's like when you put weight behind certain words, it's and you see who tries to hijack the messaging, just like how they hijacked or attempting to hijack, woke. And I'm allowing, I'm not allowing it anymore. There's a part of me personally where I'm taking back words. I'm taking back the American flag, because I do think about people like LaKeesha's family, who literally are the roots of what Royal Oak is. It is it has helped to grow what that city has become. And you think about that, where you keep in consideration that these people were created as being, free until further notice.
Right.
And that's the part that has always irked me.
Right. And for those of you, I just had to kind of do a little research. Let's talk about what is the 13th Amendment and 14th Amendment, because I'm really big about educating folks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So first of all, let's just put that out on the table. I know we know here in this room, but the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. All right. While the 14th Amendment granted citizenship to those born or naturalized in the U.S., including former slaves. So I just want to put that on the table, because some people are like,
that's right.
Oh, which one? What is the 14th Amendment? What is the 13th Amendment? So let's put that out there. All right. One abolished slavery.
Some context for both you ladies and for all the viewers is that the 14th Amendment is actually being reviewed in today's world by the Supreme Court because of what we're seeing with all the migrants and all of this situation of trying to deport everybody. And so the biggest argument is, if you go after the migrants that have been in this country, we're talking about the DACA, the Dreamers, people who have gotten green cards, who've gone through the system, and how they're now trying to strip that right from people. Will the Black community be next because of how that was actually created to change us from 3/5 a person to now being a actual documented American citizen?
Wow. You just
So
joined
this
us.
battle continues.
It's getting hot. Yeah.
I think that's why
Welcome
it's
to the
important
show.
to educate yourself. And if you can't educate yourself, ask someone for help to get you to that point to educate.
Right.
Like Ian said, it's not about, taking the word woke. It's about just opening your eyes and being able to listen and contain and, understand why people are vocal and trying to, make sure everyone has that piece of pie, so we can all fellowship together and, move forward together. It's not about
Absolutely.
dividing. It's about just educating us. And, it's a sore spot in American history, but it's still our history. If we don't know about it, how will we ever move forward?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you just joined us, we are talking about Juneteenth. That's coming up June 19th. Okay. So for some of y'all who still don't even know what that is. So June 19th, right? And we're talking to Ian Sherman and LaKeesha Morrison. They are born and raised in Royal Oak, y'all. So, hey, don't get it twisted. But, LaKeisha's still there, and Ian, he's moved to New York City, but he comes back and forth like it's nobody's business. We are at a halfway mark, y'all. We are doing excellent on timing. You know what I'm saying? So I want to pivot again. Local lenses. All right. LaKeesha, you're a resident of Royal Oak. Ian, you were born and raised in Royal Oak, okay? Have you seen Juneteenth represented in the community, all right? Has the recognition of the holiday grown? And what does that say as far as in what direction we're headed? I know that was action-packed, so let's start with the first one. Have you seen it? in the community? I know we've got an event coming up, but Keisha and then Ian, if you want to chime in too, you know?
Honestly, I didn't see it for a while. And it wasn't until, the Black Lives Matter kind of amplified a lot of Black people's voices. And, hosting and running one of Royal Oak's biggest Black Lives Matter marches, I realized that we're still lacking the education about Black culture and Black excellence. So, I decided 5 years ago that why not celebrate Royal Oak first Juneteenth in the city of Royal Oak. And from there, it just snowballed because at that point, the first year, a few. And then every year it got bigger and bigger. And, it's so funny. I think she had been like 6 or 7, a 7-year-old came up to one of our city officials and was like, I know everything about Juneteenth now. I didn't know about it before. And so being able to educate children from a very young age will only be able to bring more celebration into our community and realize that this is something that we should reflect on and celebrate.
Right. So, LaKeesha, what year is this coming up for this?
This will be the 5th year.
The 5th
year.
Okay.
Long time coming.
Okay. And I just want to be real and raw with you. How has it been every year? I know you're growing. How has it been? How is,
Every year it just gets better, bigger and better. And I hope that eventually it becomes something where, it's marked in every calendar in Royal Oak, from the school, elementary schools, and, more volunteers showing up and, more families coming out to celebrate with us. Because this is it's for everyone. It's not just for Black people. It's for, white, pink, purple, whatever color you are, you're coming to celebrate. So.
Yeah, say that again. Say that again. For everybody.
For everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. You see what I'm saying? All right, Ian. Let me pick on Ian for a minute, because you're working with the Juneteenth event, LaKeesha. But Ian, when you come back home, what are you seeing?
So just a sidebar to it is that I was born in Detroit, and so I have a lot of family still in the inner city, and so I lived a tale of two lives almost growing up. I would spend half of my time in the suburbs in Royal Oak getting my education, and then the other half in Detroit with my cousins and everybody, and having time with and learning more about Black culture, art. I mean, when you talk about the DIA, when you have access to the past, you learn and you ask more questions. Now, to Royal Oak's school system, what I would say is that it was a good education, and I do see where LaKeesha talks about the fact that they didn't touch on certain things, and there's certain memories of mine that I remember wanting to do book reports on Malcolm X and being nudged to talk more about Martin Luther King. And that gives you kind of context of what the education system really was, because either they didn't know or they were afraid to have those kind of conversations. Another factor is my father was a Black Panther. So he was Black militant. He really wanted us to understand our history. My grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman. So the history was rich in our blood of where we came from and what we did for this country. And the reason why I give a lot of credit to Black Panther Party is because that's the reason why we have free lunches in schools. It was their systems that they created in San Francisco that was implemented then into the entire school system, because everybody sat there like, what? How is it that this small group of people are feeding their children every morning, and we're just letting everybody starve here? So, I give a lot of credit to the Black Panther Party for certain community operations that they implemented that really took us into the forefront. And when I have these kind of conversations with you, it's interesting to see that people are trying to strike down said free lunch for children. And you just wonder what kind of monster is behind that decision making.
Right.
Not gonna name names, but y'all can just look it up. But with Juneteenth, as LaKeesha said, we didn't have that in school. It wasn't talked about. Was it a thing in Galveston, Texas, because it was an actual holiday in that state? Yes, that was a thing. But in Michigan, we were far removed from that, especially from the roots of the actual birthplace of where this all kind of took place, being Texas. The last people being freed. And so when you think about those kind of things, I still had my ties to Detroit. So that's when it came to me. Again, when I was celebrating Jubilee Day and eating clearly my red cake.
Wow. So you go hard in the paint and on Jubilee Day, right? You mean it.
Don't call me late to the barbecue is all I gotta say. All right.
Right. All right. Well, we've got one last subtopic I want to cover with you, the reflection to action. As Ian and LaKeesha know, we don't sit here, whether you call yourself an activist, abolitionist, or just a supporter of the community, or as we're getting ready for Juneteenth, and not have some call to action. We got to have some takeaway. And so I want to ask both of you, we've got about 8 minutes left, so we're doing great on time and everything. Juneteenth is often or supposed to be a time of celebration and reflection. Now, we started off with some stats that kind of contradict that, right? But then again, some of us, we are having that red velvet cake, and we're gonna be, at the event on Juneteenth that LaKeesha and them are putting together. But how do we turn awareness into action, y'all? Seriously, I know we're having events. It's gonna be a lot of events on the 19th. Let's be real. I'm sure some of y'all know some events. I'm looking right at the audience right here because I like to, hold people, everybody, even the listener and the watcher accountable. There's going to be a lot of events, all right? But how do we have some awareness into action even after Juneteenth?
I mean, you can have it even before,
Right.
investing in Black communities. There's quite a few Black businesses in Royal Oak. If we want to feel included, start investing in the Black communities, Black businesses, educating, celebrating, being able to sit down and have a conversation. I think that's where you start, is having conversations. And you might be uncomfortable, but by the time you're done, I guarantee you're going to have a new Black friend. And then go from there and just invest and amplify Black voices.
Wow, that's good. Thanks, LaKeesha. Ian, what you got?
I love that. It really is a piggyback on what you're saying, because when you think about the aspect of tying yourself to different cultures, the uncomfortable feeling is great because that's called growth. When you think about the lobster, the only time that a lobster changes its shell is when it feels the discomfort of being bigger than what the shell is. And that's when it knows to change itself, to evolve, to grow. And it's that uncomfortable feeling, we should all be feeling that. I would never want to walk around through this world and thinking I know everything. I don't. That's the biggest thing and beauty of living. We're constantly changing and growing. And when people talk about hypocrisy of any of us, you have to ask yourself, well, have you experienced something that has changed your view? And you should champion changing your view. You really should. Outcast said it, and I've lived with this all my life. Forever change, yet stay the same.
Wait a minute. Unpack that a little bit, Ian.
I want you to think about that. Forever change. Always grow. Always challenge yourself. Always try to build for more out of yourself. Not demanding out of any other individual. This is just for internal. Always strive to grow and change, but never lose who you were when you started this journey. And that I've lived with that this entire time. A lot of people in New York will tell you, they think that they always ask, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I'm from Detroit. Born and raised. This is where I walked through this world. People think I'm Andre with the flute at this point in my life. And it's really interesting.
With an album coming out.
You know what I mean? It won't be no flute music, I promise that. But it's that element where I walk through New York and I make friends with everybody. I laugh about it because I'm like a ghetto Mr. Rogers. I will walk into any room, doesn't matter who it is. It could be with the president of the United States, or it could be in the projects. I'm gonna treat everybody with the same respect.
Right.
First and foremost.
Right.
And that's how we start the conversation. And then it's, where do things go from there? And that's how we challenge ourselves to grow. Really. So.
Well, hey, if you just joining us, you're gonna have to hit rewind and stuff. You missed a good convo and everything. We got about 3 minutes left, y'all. And with that 3 minutes, we got an event coming up, LaKeesha. And we have, just this is a 3-part series. It's 3 episodes that we're doing. LaKeesha, your brother, and you are going to be coming in talking about your family, the history, and everything. And then we've got some people from Royal Oak, the city of Royal Oak, coming in to represent. So you definitely don't want to miss it. You want to make sure you tune in all episodes. But Ian and LaKeesha, before we end this episode, episode 1, what is Juneteenth? what are some of the nuggets we want people to leave with in this episode? You know, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I know y'all ready for the challenge.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, when we host this event, our biggest objective is making sure we educate the community and give them the correct education. You know, my grandma used to say, look it up in the Bible. Look it up. See what Juneteenth is about. Start asking questions. See how you can be a part of the community too. Because at the end of the day, like, we're all striving to be connected some way and somehow, and in the positive ways. So, you know, being able to educate and listen and being able to open up your heart and understand, like, this is a celebration for everyone.
Yes. And piggybacking off of that, our youth, our future.
That's right.
They definitely need to come out and everything. I know you have kids, both of you do. And it's so, and even put that little spin onto it. Ian, I know you got some food for thought. And I know, Keisha, I throw the kids in there. We got to make sure our kids carry this forward.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think about that because Keisha does touch on a really solid point about how, like, when we learned and how this wasn't taught in our history. And it makes me think of people like Tom Hanks, who talks about, you know, why didn't he learn about the Tulsa Massacre until he was in his 50s? And I think to myself, like, you know, and this is something that's more special in the context of, like, actual taste of freedom versus something that's such a horrible stain on our flag. But at the same time, when I think about it, I think about the education side, but I also think about the empathy that is needed for us to really talk to each other, and also think about community-wise. Because when you think about it, you know, there was a neighbor plantation or a neighbor individual who knew that slaves were free, but they didn't say anything. And there's that element where it's like, you know, we got to look after our community and we got to look out for our neighbors. And you got to think of the concept of, you know, when you see something is wrong is happening to your neighbors, what do you do in those moments?
Yeah.
Do you stand up? Do you get involved? Do you get arrested? You know, what does good trouble look like? And you think about the people who put their body on the front lines for change. And you know, John Lewis, perfect example. You think about the people through our history that are sprinkled throughout and that challenge the system. That's what I think is being called for in today's struggle that is still leading us, because we're not over this fight. Like I said, the 14th Amendment is being reviewed. Let that sink in.
Right. Thank you, LaKeesha. Thank you, Ian. And I'm going to also, because I don't want to just put you both on Front Street, I also want to challenge people beyond Juneteenth, beyond, you know, LaKeisha's event that's happening June 19th, you know, and we'll be plugging that more and so forth in our other episodes. You know, we talked about it with these stats, Ian, you know, and LaKeisha. We're free technically, but we have a lot of people still in prison. You see what I'm saying? And I know we're working with organizations, grassroots organizations. There's a lot of, like Keisha said, Google, get involved. Yes, come out to the Juneteenth events. But after you eat your red velvet cake and your hot dog, get involved in a local action or organization, whether it's in Royal Oak or Metro Detroit, that's trying to end incarceration for real. So I just want to put people on Front Street, because some people think after Juneteenth over, so is their work.
And you can't have oh, go ahead, Ian.
No. Ladies first, please.
Okay. And you touched on a good point. Like, sometimes we feel imprisoned in our own brain, in our own mind, and being able to, like, be uncomfortable, that conversation, you can release yourself from that prison and be able to, like, okay, I can do better. I know better. When you know better, you do better.
Right. You do better. Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. But go ahead, Ian. You got something real quick?
The thing I was going to tie in was that I want people to keep in consideration, too, that there is 158 privatized prison systems that are in America. It is a business to keep people in prison. And the Biden administration on day one did an executive order, so 2021, to remove, to stop federal funding. And as of 2025, under Trump, he has reversed that with his own executive order. So we have a lot of work to do. And we have to think about the people who have been incarcerated wrongfully, or even at the same time, was the cause that was it overkill? Meaning, did they get, 50 years for a joint back in 1980? Some people are sitting there rotting. And exactly, like, we're not really up to date with the laws and looking at the landscape that's ahead of us, and even what's coming, down the path. like you said,
Yeah.
LaKeesha, for the children, how we're setting everybody up for success. So
Right.
that's a big thing. Constantly educate. We never know
Right.
enough.
Yeah. Well, thank you, LaKeesha. Thank you, Ian. Thank you so much. This is not going to be the end of it, y'all. We just getting started, I'm telling you, but we got to get out of here. Please make sure you stay tuned for the other episodes. But this episode was What is Juneteenth? And I want to challenge all of you. Please, please, please. I'm going to look at you right in your face. I want to challenge you. Make sure you look it up. Hey, just don't go off of what we say. Do your own research. Until next time, hey, take care of yourself and happy Juneteenth Day. Take care, Ian and LaKeesha. Thank you.
Bye.